Praise be to Jesus. Hi again, everyone. Let's continue here. November 21st, 2015. Pope Francis says to educators, quote, "To educate is not only to catechize and evangelize in schools, but to open youth to a dimension of transcendence, combating every sort of closedness. Therefore, educators should feel called to take risks, because where there is rigidity, there is no humanity, and Christ does not enter." Well, this is from Vatican Radio. Seems like he's saying that those of us who are rigid don't have the Holy Spirit. That's the way I would interpret that one. November 26th, Pope Francis tweets, quote, "May my visit to Africa be a sign of the Church's esteem for all religions and strengthen our bonds of friendship," unquote. That's Twitter, obviously, he tweeted. November 27th, Pope Francis said to youth in Kenya, quote, "When you don't understand something, when desperation hits you, then look at the cross. That is the great failure of God. That is the destruction of God. And it's a challenge to our faith. And this is hope, because history did not end in that failure. Rather, it's in the resurrection of Christ that renewed all of us. I am going to tell you something personal. It's 12 o'clock. Are you hungry?" Laughter and cheers. "I'm going to tell you something private. In my pocket, I always carry two things. A rosary to pray something which seems odd. This is here is the history of God's failure in the rosary. That's the history of God's failure in the rosary. It's the way of the cross, a small way of the cross, as Jesus suffered, and when they condemned him right up to where he was buried with, 'These two things I do the best I can.' He was buried with, 'These two things I do the best I can.'" That's what it says, Catholic News Agency. The history of God's failure, huh? Oh, boy. November 30th, Pope Francis sends shoes to stand in at Paris climate protest. He sent a pair of his shoes to stand in at the Paris climate protest. Who would think of something like that? Well, this one's long. In a flight interview from Africa to Rome, Pope Francis said, "Yesterday I went to the evangelicals who work hard, and then they came to Mass in the evening. Today I went to the mosque. I prayed in the mosque. Even the imam got into the Pope-mobile to take a ride around the small stadium. These are small gestures in that which they want. Is that which they want. Because there is a small group, I think that it is Christian, or they say they are Christian, which is very violent. I don't really understand this, but it's not ISIS. It's another thing. It's Christian." After being asked about the dangers of fundamentalism and the Paris attack by ISIS, quote, "One of the greatest values is the fraternity among us. We are all children of God. We have the same Father. In this sense, we have to make politics of unity, reconstruction. A word that I don't like, but I have to use it, is, quote, tolerance, unquote." Well, all of this is a quote. But not only tolerance, coexistence, friendship. That's how it is. Fundamentalism is a sickness that exists in all religions. We Catholics have some, not just some, so many, who believe they have the absolute truth, and they move forward with calamities, with defamation, and they hurt people. They hurt. And I say this because it's my church. It's his church? Yeah, right. The church doesn't belong to Christ, it belongs to him. Okay, and I say this because it's my church, also us, all of us. It must be combated. Yeah, they see, fundamentalism is a sickness. After being asked what Islam and Muhammad have to say to the world today, they have virtues, many virtues, and these virtues are constructive. I also have the experience of friendship. It's a strong word, friendship. With a Muslim, a world leader, we can talk, and he had his beliefs and I had mine. He prayed and I prayed. There are many values, prayer, for example, fasting, religious values, also other virtues. We can't cancel out a religious because there are some, or even many fundamentalist groups at a certain point in history. It's true, war between religions have always been there throughout history, always. We also need to ask for forgiveness. Catherine de' Medici was no saint, and that 30 years war, that night of St. Bartholomew, we must also ask for forgiveness from the fundamentalist extremists in the religious wars. We need to ask for forgiveness from the fundamentalist extremists in the religious wars. But they have virtues. One can dialogue with them. Today I was at a mosque, and a man prayed with me. He wanted to go around the small stadium with me in the Pope Mobile, where there were many who couldn't enter. And in the Pope Mobile, there was the Pope and an imam. It was possible to speak. As everywhere, there are people with religious values. There are people who don't. How many wars, not only religious, wars we Christians have made. It wasn't the Muslims who did the sack of Rome. They have virtues. Oh, boy. I can see why fewer and fewer people are reading, or listening to me read all this, Okay, I just pushed the wrong button, but I'm back on here. All right. I was just checking the time. Let's see here. We can read a few more. Pope Francis is PETA's Person of the Year. That's from Time Magazine. The People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA. He's the Person of the Year. Well, that makes about, a few Persons of the Year. He was Time's Person of the Year. He was on Rolling Stone. He was on gay magazines. And this is probably, the fifth or sixth one. All right, December 2nd. Call Me Francis, a film about the People's Pope, has world premiere at Vatican. The film was produced by Silvio Berlusconi's Mediaset's Medusa and Tao Do Companies, from the Hollywood Reporter. Pope Francis says, quote, "Not everyone understands when there is talk of God's maternity. It's not a popular language. In the good sense of the word, it seems a language that is somewhat chosen. Therefore, I prefer to use tenderness proper to a mother, the tenderness of God, tenderness born from the paternal insides. God is father and mother." December 7th. Pope Francis prays for climate summit in Paris to succeed. Yeah, maybe we're going to stop there. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. That's 10 minutes. Okay, so we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.